might be in your wheelhouse, as far as programming and designing stuff. Will we be able to buy multiple items at once? So when we're going through, can we pick if we add to a shopping cart and then check out, or?
So currently, the process of the item kiosk is very focused on per item selection. So let's say you would pick some, let's say 50 caliber ammo for your gun. You would be able to actually pick the quantity of ammo that you want to buy, but we don't kind of have the experience of a shopping cart. We are not expecting you to buy some ammo and then go to another section and then buy other stuff and then only do the purchase at the end. No, you would probably pick the ammo, equip it, or send it to global inventory, and then actually move forward. I'm not sure how this in the future is actually going to be, but for now, this is the application that we have for the item kiosk.
Gotcha. So this week's ATV brought us the first mention of global inventory, of this global inventory. Now, what can you tell us about this first implementation of global inventory and how it's supposed to work with the shop item kiosks?
So this came out as a safe place that we can actually put all of the items that the player has. You always have the option of buying an item and equipping that item to, let's say, a ship, or let's say a slot on your character. But we also may have duplicates, we may have large quantities of items, and we use this global inventory to actually just have a safe place that we know belongs to player number X, and every time that he wants to browse his wares, we just redirect him to the global inventory, and we know everything that he owns.
Gotcha. Now, the next question from the thread there says, do you foresee a future where NPC interaction can perform any of these same functions as the kiosk? Has there been any talk about going to an NPC and having much of the same functionality that you would get from a kiosk?
Actually, this question is very interesting. We didn't talk about it, but we can see as, at least in my opinion, like a really nice opportunity for role play, as we currently have with the shops, where players can physically go to the items, look at the items, inspect the items. It would also be very nice to go to, let's say, an NPC on that store and actually do a traditional buy. Currently, there's actually no plans, but it is something that we would consider maybe in the future.
Now, right now in the game, we have storefronts where you go and like a Kasaba, where you can go in and you can see all the physical items and whatnot. A big part of the reason for the creation of Shop Item Kiosks is because we want to introduce more items to the game than we can currently display in these shops. It's always this not necessarily a chicken and the egg, but it's always a question of prerequisites. It's when you've got content teams that are designing, like for instance, let's just use clothing as an example. You've got the character art team who they may be cranking out 50 different shirts, 50 different pants, 50 different jackets, every X number of months. But we don't necessarily have the physical environments in which to display 50 new shirts and 50 different pants. And I am just pulling numbers out of the thin air, guys, just for the sake. So the shop item kiosks allow for us to implement these items without having the bottleneck of waiting for new environments to be added, new physical shops and stuff. Am I right in that? I'm pretty sure I'm right in that. I'm just looking for confirmation.
Yeah. So one of the things that actually came to make the item kiosks very important is exactly as you say, the limit physical space that stores have. Let's just imagine that a store could have the thruster of a reclaimer. That's like half the store right there.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna walk in and go like, "Oh, I
It's in
really
the
like
back.
that thruster." Yeah, it's don't worry, it's right there. You can miss it. So it got to a point that we want to have a way where we can present all of the items that we want to sell to the player in normal way, instead of like having a pile of just like coolers on the store. That would just not work. Is if you want the cooler on the top, well, you need to platform there. That is just not usable at all. So this is going to enable us, like in reality, stores that have displays. Sure, they show some items, they show clothes, but they also have a storage facility in the back, and we can store those items there like people do in reality, of course.
Yeah. A couple of the questions that we've seen come in, not just this morning, but on the thread yesterday, had to do with a little bit of concern that Shop Item Kiosks were going to replace the diegetic, immersive universe of Star Citizen. And I think if anybody that's been following the project, since the beginning, we can probably attest to this. We're so committed to keeping as many things diegetic and as many things in there in the world, from transferring cargo to having storefronts, that I don't think anybody needs to worry that the kiosk will replace the tactile sensation of walking into Kasaba and seeing all the clothes. It's just meant to augment and to address certain bottlenecks in development.
Yeah, the item kiosk is going to serve kind of like a parallel option that players have to buying stuff. Basically, you can still go up to the item that you want and you can still buy it as well right now. So the item kiosk is just a feature that we have that will enable you, if you really want to, let's say you're in a hurry, you don't, or for instance, you don't like to roleplay, you don't like to go into the item, you can go to the item kiosk and buy the item that you want. On the other hand, if you still want to feel the experience of going into a shop, looking how cool my new quantum drive is going to look before I put it in the ship and don't see it again. So there's always that option. So we're not taking it away from the player. The player has the choice.
And of course, there's an immersive aspect even to the shop item kiosks. One of the things we noticed in the reveal yesterday was the themed different interfaces between Kasaba and Dumpers Depot, stuff like that. One of the questions is, how do you go about making the kiosks still be an immersive experience?
So we tried to keep it as realistic as possible. Even nowadays, we have places that have kiosks on the shop, and people can go in, probably interact with a tablet or a kiosk and make the purchase and then pick it up from the counter. We try to make it as customizable as possible. You would get a feeling when you enter Kasaba that you would see the theme in the item kiosk. Everything would look kind of familiar. It doesn't need to be exactly a copy-paste of everything on the shop, but you would immediately go like, I know this. This is part of Kasaba. Okay, I know this is going to give me cool clothes. Again, this is what in reality stores do as well. They keep branding and theming to keep everyone kind of like, okay, I went to this shop, but I know the shop's name.
Follow-up question from the live chat there. Do all the different kiosks function the same? If I learn how to do a Kasaba one, is the Dumpers Depot going to work the same, or do they have a different menu hierarchy? How different or similar are these different kiosks?
So in terms of item kiosks separation that we currently have separations between vehicles and characters. So imagine you go to a Kasaba, you would expect to find a character item kiosk. So it's only going to deal with character items. Let's say you want a pair of new pants. Yeah. You want a new helmet? Okay, you can find it. And then if you go to, let's say, a store, Dumpers Depot, where it's traditionally vehicles, okay, you could find, okay, I need to buy a new quantum drive. Okay, you're going to find it there. And you're going to find it because you can pre-select, at least in the case of the vehicles, you can pre-select the vehicle. So I need a new quantum drive for my Gladius. Okay, no worries. Just go in, select the Gladius, browse the quantum drives they have available for you, buy it, as simple as that.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned buy a quantum drive for your Gladius. When you buy a quantum drive for your Gladius, where does that item go?
Okay, so currently we have two options. It can go either to the global inventory, which we talked about. It's kind of like the safe space where we keep all of the items for the player, or we can directly equip that item in a valid ship. So let's say you were browsing information about the Gladius, you see a cool quantum drive, you want to equip it immediately, you would do that selection.
Gotcha. And of course that is the current initial implementation of that. Like any Star Citizen game system, the first implementation will continue to iterate, will continue to evolve. I imagine there were a couple questions about whether we could have things delivered to our hangars. Instead of a global inventory, can we have an item delivered, to our personal hangars and it sits there physically, or can we have it delivered to our ship hold, for instance? Maybe we don't want to equip it right now, but we can deliver it to the ship hold. I know that's not the first implementation, but has there been any discussion about that?
Honestly, I can't tell. I really don't know. In my opinion, it would be really cool to have that, and maybe it's something that we could move towards. But it depends on the feedback that we get from the players and the sense of direction that we really want to move forward, And I mean, technologically, we have the option. Now, it will depend. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Will it bring benefit to someone? Yeah, probably yes, probably no. Let's see.
You did so well there, Hugo. I set you up. I was hoping you were going to give that exact answer. Guys, that's how these systems always work. There will be that first implementation. That is the advantage of running a live environment in the middle of our game development. Is that you don't have to go 50 steps down in a plan. You can have ideas, you can have thoughts. Like maybe we can do this, maybe we can do this. But because we have the live environment, in the middle of our game development, we get to push that first implementation out, that tier 0 version of it. See how you guys respond. See what you guys like about it. See what you guys don't, and then make plans based on that. So it's basically that was a design question, but I was hoping Hugo would feed me exactly what I needed, and he did. So thank you so much, Hugo. From the live chat, will kiosks have a search input, or do I have to scroll through every item in Kasaba before I find that red jacket I'm looking for?
So currently in the design, we do not have a search option. But again, like what we were talking about, this is the first implementation. We are going to gather feedback. According to the feedback that we get, of course, changes might be made. We may move towards that. It just depends on basically what the players tell us. And of course, if they're going to say like, oh, I really hated going to this store. This store has like 5,000 items. And it's horrible. Okay, that's a pretty good motive.
Yes, yeah, no, it's definitely. I like I said, without it, that's also a design question as opposed to an implementation question. Hugo is our programmer who implements these things, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that as the game continues to expand and as we add more shirts and more pants and more weapons and more ships, that yes, there will be filters in that sense. Will there be a direct comparison option? Basically, they're asking, has there been any talk of, show me the Rattler missile versus the Talon missile, and have them both up on the screen with comparative stats kind of stuff?
Yes. So for the item kiosk, we'll have comparisons. Currently for tier 0, this is going to be a simplified comparison. Again, this is an evolving system. This is the first implementation that we're going to do. It is possibly going to get much better in the future. But until then, we'll have comparison, but simplified version. A lot like we have currently, where players actually browse through the items and need to pay attention to its description to actually get the values they want. Mm-hmm. But in the future, we're moving towards having a more, how should I say, visually appealing way of actually comparing stats.
Yes. No, these a lot of these designs, they start with a designer doing a crude, very crude kind of Visio type thing, and then you guys come in and you guys make it, look as amazing as you do. But even that is, again, it's still tier 0. We are constantly, because we have this advantage. We have this amazing advantage that no other game does, where we have the live environment in the middle of our game development. We push out these iterative interim versions of things so that we can get your feedback all throughout the development process. And you see that. We see that in the ship UIs, how much the ship UIs have changed over the years. We see that in just the vehicle claim, or the
insurance.
Yeah,
shop.
the insurance stuff and the vehicle selection stuff, and how much that's improved over years. So it's if you ever think. I suppose what I'm about to say now, it just goes out to the streamers, but streamers, the YouTubers, whatever. If you think nobody's watching your stuff, if you think that our developers aren't sitting in there with with a streamer with Matachi or something up on the side monitor, watching not only how he's interacting with things, but how the chat is reacting to his interaction things, and getting our feedback. We take feedback from every avenue. It's not just Spectrum. It's not just Reddit. We watch your streams. We watch your videos. It's like that. So it's this advantage that we have of getting to watch you guys use these iterative versions of the system to help us guide to the next version cannot be overstated.
Yeah, that is very true. And actually, in terms of like UI, well, UI, everyone has their personal opinion. Some people like it one way, other people like it other way. And we actually do like to receive good and bad feedback about the UI, and we do take that into consideration. So don't think just because you posted that no one actually saw it. Yeah, we do see it a lot.
Absolutely. And part of the great work that our community team does, and I can say that because I'm not on the community team anymore, is correlating that stuff and sending clips to people and say, look how this person's using this, and look how this person's using this, and stuff like that. So it's keep up the good work, guys. Let's see. Will every company like Double Depot, Kasaba have individually designed kiosks? We have a lot of companies in this game, a lot of corporations. I don't know if every company will have one, but what companies have you worked on so far? Let's do that.
So the test setting is actually based on Kasaba. Mm-hmm. It's a modified version of Kasaba, actually. As you might understand, we have test scenarios, test levels, and we just put a Kasaba with all available clothes and all available vehicle parts, and it's a massive store, and it basically allows us to test both the player items and the vehicle items in the same level, which in terms of development is just amazing. Of course, parallel developments are being done for the other brandings as well, of course, but our main focus, well, at least my development main focus was on Kasaba. As you can imagine, we also have artists who are creating the themes for the UI assets, and those guys are of course, always working on new templates, new branding schemes, and those guys are the guys who actually know all about this.
Here's an interesting question from the live chat. Has there been any discussion about a buy history? Like see the things that you've bought previously. One of the reasons this seems interesting to me is if you find, like for people who are having to replenish physical ammo, ballistic weapons, stuff like that. You find I have my Hornet and I have my Hornet configured the way that I like it. I mean, it's all ballistic weapons. It's all ballistic weapons, and there's a bunch of different ammo types and a bunch of different missile types. And I like the missiles and the ammo, and the ballistic ammo that I find that I like. Is there a way to just like find favorites and stuff, and so I always just go and find directly to the things I want? We live in a min-max society, so I think this question strikes me as a min-max kind of thing.
Well, currently we don't have any plans for some kind of like buying history. It does seem like a really interesting idea. Maybe that's something that we can consider in the future. Currently, we focused more on just making it available for players to go into the store and buy the item. We didn't consider the records being kept through all of the transactions that went along. But again, it is a nice idea. It's something that we can discuss, and thank you for the feedback.
Right. Inventory counts. The question just came in about inventory counts. Now, I would imagine at this early stage, the shops don't have like a limited number. Like you go into Kasaba right now, they don't run out of the red jacket. If 50 people come in and they all buy the red jacket, do they run out of the red jacket? I don't think they do. Do they? Anybody?
Probably not.
Yeah. Has there been any talk about for this back room about adding an inventory count to the things that are on the kiosks?
So I do know that systems is working on this. There's actually a balancing of quantities going on. I do not have enough information to talk about it, but there was a conversation, and yeah, it seems to be working on it. Of course, now with the item kiosk, we just make it available for people to buy high quantities of items on the go. So of course, something is being done to, correct this kind of behavior. Unfortunately, I don't have enough information to actually say yes or no.
Yeah, and just to clarify where I was going with that, of course there will be inventory counts, in the full, complete, operating universe. Inventory counts are one of the ways game design encourages players to travel and to explore the galaxy. You don't want every single truck stop, every single space station, every single planet to have an unlimited supply of everything that they have. We want that to be part of the gameplay, where you and your org mates and everything have to track the quantities and the availabilities of certain items. Maybe not necessarily a red jacket, but quantum drives, quantum drives and stuff like that. So I was speaking primarily of this first iteration about whether there were inventory counts in this T0 implementation. I don't think there are. Not in Tier 0. We'll see.
Yeah, but this is exactly like we're adding the system exactly to wreak chaos. We're going to bring chaos to the system, and let's see the changes that this is going to bring in the future. This is actually fantastic to mess economy up, which will then fix. Exactly. Yeah. Balance it out.
Okay. I don't remember if we talked about this at the beginning of the show, but it just came in on the live chat. Can we buy amounts of something? Like, can we sit there and like, if I want to buy five magazines, do I have to buy one magazine purchase, one magazine purchase?
No. It does have quantities, yes.
All right. Here's a pretty general question. Can you briefly explain the process of creating a new kiosk?
Okay, so in terms of technology, what I can tell you guys is that we have a concept of a store. Let's say that this store has a radius of about 200 yards. we created an object that we defined as an item kiosk. If we drag that object within the radius of the store, it will immediately pick up all the inventory that that store has. We created this system to be the easiest way to allow designers to create new item kiosks, to have a concept of store, to have actually an easy way to manipulate all the information related to that store. This is going to be in the future when designers want to actually put the item kiosks inside of multiple stores. May that be the ones that we have available now, may that be the ones that we're going to put in the future. As simple as dragging and dropping that object into that store, and everything should work. Of course, there might be issues, but I'm expecting those. So, no, they don't happen. Yeah.
You said something 200 yards. What's the radius for?
So basically, we're defining kind of a trigger that says everything that is inside of these 200 yards is still inside of a shop. So every, let's say, item kiosk item that we put inside of the map, if it's inside of those 200 yards, it will detect, okay, I belong to this shop.
Gotcha.
So the 200 yards isn't like set in stone. It can be determined by the designer. He can specify, okay, how big, how small he wants the store to be, so that everything that is inside of that store, well, it counts as inventory, basically.
Gotcha. On a smaller space station, if there's a kiosk that's within the range of multiple stores, like if there's a kiosk that's within the 200 ranges of conscientious objects and Kasaba, could a single kiosk operate for both stores?
It is possible, although it should not be configured that way. Let's say that we had two Kasaba stores next to each other. On the middle, exactly in the middle, they had an item kiosk. And both stores have a radius that expands and covers that item kiosk. That item kiosk would then show items from both stores. Of course, the configurations done by the designers would probably never allow that to happen.
All right. Let's see. The other thing that I thought of when you mentioned the 200-yard radius, and I thought of this because it's actually come up in both yesterday's question thread and the live chat. People are curious if they'll be able to key into the kiosks with their mobiGlas. I think from reading the comments here, I think some of the concern is that, trying to have 50 people all bunched up at the same kiosk, like you often see in many MMOs. Could something like, if you get within that 200-yard range, I can just bring up the kiosk on my mobiGlas, so we all don't have to stand around in a huddle like that. Has anything like that been discussed?
Actually, I believe I did see that question in Spectrum. Was it? Yeah. I believe so. That is a super good question. Currently, we don't. We perceive the idea of using the item kiosk as actually going to the physical object. Mm-hmm. It would be, in my opinion, super interesting to actually have some kind of way to switch it up instead of going actually to the item kiosk, like having the concept of a digital app. That would be, at least to me, it seems like super cool, but currently we have the idea of going to the item kiosk and doing all of the purchases there, like you would do in real life, right? Mm-hmm. Some places even have like 4 or 5 tablets that people go to the tablets. Sometimes they need to queue to use the tablets. That's just reality as we see it now. Of course, the idea that actually that person put out is actually very good.
Yeah, well, my reality is I buy everything off of Amazon. I haven't walked into a store, and I haven't walked into a physical brick and mortar store in a while. So
it's actually funny because I actually prefer to go in store, actually.
A lot of people do, and I could see that, like if you were buying a TV or something, you want to see the picture, there's information that you can get in a brick and mortar that you can't get online. But for the most part, for my day-to-day stuff, I buy everything on Amazon. So it's ultimately, to follow up on that question, it's mostly that's actually a design question. I was asking Hugo to see if he was aware of any conversations. I don't want to sit there and rule anything out, guys. I don't want to commit to it that yes, you'll be able to do it. No, you won't be able to do it. I can tell you just from 3 years of talking with game designers, almost 4 years of talking with game designers here, these systems, the kiosks, the physical locations, unlike the real world, where it's perfectly normal to just sit at home and order everything, get my groceries on Amazon, get my toiletries on Amazon, everything that I do. In a video game, you want as many things to drive people to different locations as possible. So even though, because there's going to be people, I can already see it in the chat, there are people that, you can do that today, why wouldn't you be able to do it 930 years in the future? And he goes, and that's one of those things where you take it to the point of realism and then you have to bring it back to the point of video game and making a video game work, like that. So
Exactly.
we're not going to say you can do it, we're not going to say you can't do it, it's a design question, neither one of us are designers at the moment, but it's definitely a conversation I think is worth having. So I expect there to be a thread either on Spectrum or on Reddit or both, and where you guys have that conversation. Remember that we'll be watching. So another question from the live chat says, are there plans for item kiosks for rec rentals? Now that's interesting. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump in here. Rec is a currency for the electronic access games. It's for the game within a game, for Arena Commander and Star Marine. Rec was never intended to function in the persistent universe. It has in many ways over the years, just because of limitations of our platform system. To have the rented ships and whatnot, that we didn't have a way to differentiate that on the platform side, and that's why some of those rented items functioned in the persistent universe. But the rec specifically was always intended to be a thing that used inside Arena Commander and Star Marine. So probably not going to see persistent universe kiosks that allow you to get things through rec. I will say that doesn't preclude the ability to rent things in the persistent universe. You can rent things in real life. I would imagine there's absolutely going to be some way, shape, or form to rent things in the persistent universe, and maybe that's what rec will evolve into. I don't know. We're not there yet, but I've seen that question come up a couple times. I see questions about rec in the persistent universe come up a couple times, so that's why I wanted to address it right there. And do you have anything to add to that, Hugo?
Currently, I don't have information about that. That's basically the best I can say.
It's all right. We're wrapped up. We're almost done. Remember, guys, that you can submit your questions live in either Twitch chat, where you can preface your question with the word question, surrounded by brackets, or in the Spectrum chat. If you're submitting questions, you're wondering, hey, why aren't they answering my question? It's because we're sitting here with Hugo Silva, who is a UI programmer. So we're taking questions that relate to the programming of our UI elements. I should also mention that on next week's Calling All Devs, we have a couple UI-based questions coming up on there with our own Todd Pappy. So there'll be even more UI information on next week's show. Let's see, what else do we have here that might be in your realm? We got questions about whether whether there will be black market kiosks added to pirate hubs. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, we're a couple carts before the horse on that one. There's no, but I mean, in theory crafting, there's nothing that would prevent pirates from having their own, shop faces and having their own technologies and stuff. So,
in terms of technology, the technology exists. It would be a configuration that we would need to do for that case. But this involves a lot more planning than just putting them in. This would probably change balance in terms of economy. How would that play out? So in terms of like technology in the future, they might show up, but for now, no.
Yeah, no, I can tell you, Chris has every intention of making a very robust, making very robust gameplay systems for the less legal side of gameplay and stuff like that. It's just in the timeline of development, you have to build all the systems for how the things are supposed to work before you build the systems for how the things are supposed to skirt them. You know, it doesn't make any sense to build this is how you get around the rules until you've got all the rules in place. So that's where we're going to route. But I know a lot of people are very excited to play Outlaw gameplay, our own Sandy Gardner included.
Included, yeah.
I mean, I don't. I'm a goody two shoes in video games most times. But all right. Well, actually, you know what? That's about all we got time for today, Hugo. You made it. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Now, guys, we're going to take a short break. We're going to play another video from the community. And when we return, we'll have the wrap-up. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.